Kitchen Nightmares, Equestrian Misadventures, Meeting the Raging Brit, Kitchen Nightmares theme plays. Fresh off his hit show Hell's Kitchen, Gordon Ramsay has been to thousands of restaurants throughout America, dealt with the worst of the worst when it comes to food, management, and the quality of a restaurant. He has met with only one failure throughout his entire career. But now, a few months after America has created an alliance with the world of Equestria in the pursuit of mutual defense and peace, one of the princesses had come through the portal back to America on a rare visit with one of her emissaries to speak with Chef Ramsay. The Lavender Alicorn has been called Princess Twilight Sparkle, as many news organizations around the world speculating about her, but still are unsure as to why Princess Twilight Sparkle has chosen Chef Gordon Ramsay as the first human she meets with her emissary Lady Pinkie Pie. The Kitchen Nightmares team here hopes to be the first to get the scoop of the Princess of Friendship's odd course of action upon visiting Earth. We have been told that she will be arriving at our Nevada headquarters in downtown Las Vegas to meet with Gordon in just a few short hours. For over 6 months now, ponies, griffins, and minotaurs have been getting deathly sick all around Equestria. Hospitals everywhere are filling up with the maximum capacity, and no one is entirely sure why. The only answer I've gotten out of any pony is the last thing they remember is going to a local restaurant where they live. I've asked the restaurants that they have mentioned, but I can't seem to get a straight answer out of any pony. Pinkie came to me a few weeks ago, and I mentioned that someone on Earth might be able to help, some famous celebrity chef named Ramsay. At first I thought she was just being her normal crazy self until I decided to take a closer look at this human's qualifications. Needless to say, I'm more than impressed. Top-ranked chef on Earth, emotional counselor, food critic, hotel critic, building renovator, health inspector. I looked him up, and as it turns out, he's currently living in the western province, or state, as Americans call them, California, where I discovered Earth when I came through the portal. His main office, however, is a few hundred miles away in Earth's equivalent to Las Pegasus. Since Pinkie and Rarity are more knowledgeable about food than I am, I figured that bringing them might also help. I didn't think that it would have been this much of an issue, though. A few weeks after the epidemic had spread all over Equestria, Twilight and her friends Rarity and Pinkie Pie came through the portal of Los Angeles. They landed in a park in Midtown borough of Pasadena. Their arrival didn't go unnoticed, as they were met with large crowds of people who were trying to take their pictures and ask them a constant barrage of questions. Minutes later, the police showed up to break up the crowd and led them to a group of federal agents who had been informed of their arrival. As it turns out, the men were from the local branch of the Secret Service, and they were sent to be their liaisons. Upon their request, Twilight, Pinkie, and Rarity were given an escort to Las Vegas all the way to Chef Ramsay's office. They spent hours on busy highways going through the many boroughs of LA, past coastal mountains, and across the desolate desert grasslands of California. It was mid-afternoon by the time the girls began to get somewhat weary of their long drive.
"I spy with my little eye something that is tan-colored,"
Pinkie stated innocently. "It's sand still, darling," the white unicorn replied from behind her magazine.
"Ugh, Pinkie, will you give it a rest?"
Twilight tiredly said as she yawned.
"We've been at this game for hours."
"Never thought I'd see someone go at a game of I Spy for 4 hours, let alone one of the agents in the backseat said with them.
"You should see how bad it gets back at home,"
Twilight chuckled.
"I'm sorry, Twilight, it's taking a really long time, so I thought I'd do something fun to pass the time,"
Pinkie replied. Sorry about that, Your Highness, but with the holiday season here, the local comic book convention in town, and the big local games going on, LAX is going to be overbooked for a while," the agent replied.
That's alright. Actually, this kind of reminds me of the train rides back home, now that I think about it. Except those never really had those delightful magazines with those juicy gossip articles,"
Rarity replied as she showed off her first issue of Vogue. Twilight just smiles and rolls her eyes at Rarity. Upon their request, the agents bought a dozen magazines of varying genre at their last gas station for them to read. Twilight had only been really casually reading a few for research on various Earth subjects, but Rarity quickly became addicted to them. Not just for the same reasons that Twilight was, though. She found quite a few designs with the pages of the magazines that gave her inspiration to create new lines of clothing once they had a break from their investigations back in Equestria. "Don't worry, Your Highness. After we see the next marker, we should be heading off of Highway 15 and into Las Vegas within the hour," the driver replied.
"Well, that's a relief. Not to say, though, that I'm not enjoying the sights of your state, I believe you called it,"
she asked. The agent simply gave a nod in confirmation before going back to reading his newspaper.
"That mountainside covered in those wind turbines, like you called them, that was amazing. I don't think I've ever seen that many generators working together like that before.
Twilight prattled on and on for the next half hour about all those things that she had seen on the drive across the state and into Nevada. Only the brown-haired agent sitting with them looked interested in what she was saying. For the most part, he would just listen and only answer questions when he was directly asked about for something. Soon, though, their trip was just about over as they drove to the top of the hill and saw the city of Las Vegas in the distance. They were quite pleased that they had finally reached the city, now that it was just a matter of searching for the man they were looking for in a large city. Luckily, their escort seemed to know exactly where they were going. They came to the Vegas Strip where they were assaulted by a manner of sights, sounds, and a number of unpleasant smells. From car exhaust to a number of uncouth scents that led them to understand why humans had taken to nicknaming this large, bright town Sin City. One of the agents mentioned a few of the more civilized sites that he liked talking about his kids to on occasion. One of the places he mentioned was something called the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, and another he called Count's Customs. The car drove up to a large white building with a sign near the top that said Caesar's Palace, in gold lettering. Twilight made the connection to a similar hotel casino back in Las Pegasus called Halflinger's Palace. Instead of right towards the building, though, they drove towards an adjacent three-story building with an unusual large fountain in front. In the middle of the fountain were large metal letters spelling out an initial, HK, and between the letters of what looked like a trident sticking out from between the two of them. They parked and the three ponies exited the car with the two agents, who helped escort them into the building. The agents were forced to dissuade any curious onlooker who had tried to approach Twilight and her friends more than just a few times. The inside of the restaurant was nothing like they were expecting. The interior was a mix of metal plating and colored glass with an elegant furniture pattern and gloss wooden floors. The entire floor was busy with diners and servers who were going about their business. On the far side was a large open kitchen for all the diners to see how their food was being made. Little kids who were with their parents went up to the girls and asked them if they could brush their hair, to which Twilight felt mildly offended at for a reason she couldn't really fathom. Trying to avoid the people and the stares that they were getting, they moved to a side of the room and up a flight of stairs where they eventually came to an office complex on the second floor. The agents escorted them to the end of the hall where they found a silver door that seemed to be different than the rest of them. Twilight could hear a heated discussion going on the other side of the door, with a lot of shouting that seemed to be going on.
Oh dear, I hope we aren't intruding upon anything important. He might be doing something.
Rarity thought aloud.
Uh-oh, it sounds like he forgot his morning mocha.
Pinkie said humorously.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
Twilight concluded as one of the agents opened the door for the three of them. Oh, that's fucking fantastic, you stupid little shit. Do you take pride out of being a spoiled little bitch? Was all the three girls were able to get out of their wide-eyed, slack-jawed expressions. Get this through your thick skull. Everything was fucking raw and rancid. Your food is shit. Don't send one of your little lawyers after me because people just hate your food. To say that Twilight was stunned at the sight before her, that was just an understatement. You are selling rotten food to your customers, you dumb fuck! The man who they assumed to be was the chef was having a shouting match with somebody over the phone. He clearly was in a tense state from behind his desk. His blonde hair seemed to be ragged, and his eyes bloodshot from whatever debacle he was currently facing, and his icy blue eyes were seething with an unquenchable rage. Twilight had never felt anger this intense from a person in her entire life. They just watched him and whoever he was talking, or rather shouting to, at each other for about 5 minutes before it ended abruptly. You need some fucking Prozac, you little twat burglar! The chef slammed the phone so hard back into his charger and ended the call that they all thought he was really going to break it on accident. It even broke Twilight, Rarity, and Pinkie Pie out of the dumbfounded states. He then tried to breathe in deeply to calm himself down as he began rubbing his eyes with his hand. Just like Fieri told you, Gordon, it isn't worth it. It isn't worth it, he said to himself as he was breathing in and breathing out deeply. Twilight tried clearing her throat to get his attention as he seemed to not have noticed them yet, and it appeared to have worked. He looked up at him from his desk, and his entire demeanor instantly changed. He got up and walked over to the three of them with a small gentle smile now adorning his face. Hello there, I'm assuming you three are the Equestrians? He asked cheerfully.
Yes, I'm Princess Twilight Sparkle, and these are my friends and fellow ambassadors, Rarity Bell and Pinkamena Diane Pie,
she said as she introduced the three of them.
Just call me Rarity, darling,
Rarity replied.
And me, Pinkie,
Pinkie said as she giggled. Ah, a pleasure to meet you, your highnesses. Call me Gordon, he replied. Or Chef Ramsey, whatever you prefer.
Alrighty then, Gordon. Thank you for meeting with us. I realize this must be strange for you meeting us like this,
she said considerately. I'll admit, getting a call late at night that a pony princess wanted to mate with me, I did check my glass of water to see if it was laced with drugs, but I've been through weirder things. Gordon replied while remembering an incident involving a red and black spandex-wearing mercenary. Although, I would like to know what this is about. Twilight went on explaining everything that has happened in Equestria for the past few months and how they had come up empty with any answers.
I must admit that we are kind of at a loss here. None of my magic can seem to detect how these ponies are really getting deathly sick or why. It's happening at every major restaurant and hotel in Equestria, so when Pinkie came to me and mentioned you, I was more than skeptical at first, but your credentials impressed me when I looked you up.
That does sound like a major problem, and basically, you want me and my team to go with you, an alien princess I've just met, to a world I've never seen, to fix the problems of hotels and restaurants I know nothing about. Twilight began to laugh nervously. She was obviously not liking how this meeting was turning out.
That's pretty much the full story, Mr. Ramsey,
Rarity replied.
I unfortunately wanted to keep the human government officials away from Equestria for the time being, so I figured you and your team would be less of a risk if you crossed over with us.
And you want me and my team to be the first humans to go to this Equestria? The three of them nodded vigorously. Well, fuck it. When do we get started?